John Munger's memorial, May 21st, 2013, one of possibly two originals.
Thank you so much for being here tonight. This is a really, hi, I'm April Sellers, those of you who don't know. Thank you.
Yay!
Thanks. This is a really special opportunity for our dance community to come together to recognize one of our elders, someone who's been with us over decades in really broad and depthful ways. We're going to hear from a few people tonight who represent different time periods in John's life and also different aspects or influences that he's had on dance. Those of you who are standing up back there, you can come and sit on this ledge right here if you want. You can sit up there on the stairs. Anyone? No, you might want to sit down. It's going to be maybe a little, you might feel weak knees, I don't know, maybe you'll swoon. If I change my outfit, we'll see. So, our first tribute tonight is going to be from John's cousin, Miss Carolyn King, also known as Cousin Bean.
Well, most of you knew John for the last half of his life when he was here in the Twin Cities, and so tonight I want to give you some background on the first half of his life from a cousin's perspective, and I think that this will give you insight as to why John was the way he was. A unique, unpredictable, hilarious, and sardonic curmudgeon. So, John's father and my mother were brother and sister, and they grew up in Bismarck, North Dakota. John's father actually attended the U of M here for a couple of years in the 1930s, but he dropped out to work for the Boy Scouts in Rapid City, South Dakota, and that's where he met and married John's mother, Cleo Kruger, who we called Aunt Pudding. They were Uncle Bud and Aunt Pudding. Uncle Bud was a World War II vet, and John was born right before the war ended, August 3rd, 1945. And then after the war, my Uncle Bud attended the School of Mines in Rapid City to become an electrical engineer. And it was during that time that I first met my cousin John. So in the fall of 1948, my family traveled to Rapid City to visit. I was 2 and John was 3, and we actually have 8mm motion pictures of him pulling me up the sidewalk in a wagon. And I promise you I will track down that movie and I will post it on YouTube so you can see John's earliest movements, and I guarantee you he pulled that wagon with In 1949, my Uncle Bud got a job with the United Fruit Company, and they moved to Panama, and then they spent the next 10 years living in various places in South America. John's mother taught him how to read, and his early education was a combination of both homeschooling and attending local grade schools when they were available. Through letters from his parents, I learned that John took his first dance class in 1952, and in 1953 he was in his first school play, one that the teacher wrote especially to feature John. During this time period, he came to know what it felt like to be in a minority group. Of course, you know, everybody else was Hispanic, and they were part of a small gringo population that was discriminated against at that time in South America. And this, of course, caused him to be a strong proponent of civil rights. Now, John's father was very conservative, but his mother was liberal, and of course we all know who had the bigger influence. Now, I'm sure he had classmate friends, but I really got the impression that John spent most of his time with his parents. And from the beginning, they treated him like an adult and not a child. And so he always seemed more grown up than the rest of us cousins when we were together. In the fall of 1959, because his schooling was not challenging enough down in South America, his parents enrolled him at St. Mark's Prep School in Massachusetts. Now, once again, John felt like he was part of a minority. But this time, it was because he hadn't been raised like a typical American teenager. He didn't understand football. He hadn't grown up watching I Love Lucy and American Bandstand. He didn't eat hot dogs and French fries. The first year was really hard for him. His fellow students thought he was odd, and they nicknamed him Yogi. But he adapted, and he got through it, and by the time he graduated, he was on the soccer and wrestling team. He won the Founders Medal for academic achievement, and he was one of 17 graduates to be accepted at Harvard. Now, my first memorable connection with John happened in the summer of 1960 when he and his parents came to visit my family in Grand Forks. Now, he was not like any of my other cousins. He gave me a book on yoga, and he taught me yoga postures in our living room. Now, I was from North Dakota. I never even heard of yoga. But I kept that book, and I eventually started practicing yoga, and today I have a special yoga room in my house, and it's all because of John's influence. So John enrolled at Harvard in the fall of 1963, and he was a member of Dunster House. And when he had to declare a major, it was either going to be classical piano or English literature. And he chose the latter because it was more practical, although he was a very accomplished pianist. Right. And about this time, his parents moved to Pakistan. And so John spent several summers there. However, it was too long a trip to make a Christmas, so we invited him to spend the holidays with our family in North Dakota. And this was when John and I really clicked and became, as he described it, not cousins, but accomplices. So my sisters and I have an older sister and a younger sister. We thought John was a riot. He was a bit eccentric, and he was always up to something interesting. He made handmade cards for the gifts that he gave us. And my younger sister was a big fan of the British pop groups, and she had invented this fictitious group called Tucker and the Teddy Boys. So John and I gave her a Beatles album, and we created this fake cover for it featuring the Bonanza Gang all holding instruments as Tucker and the Teddy Boys. And this was a huge hit, and there were pictures of it out in the lobby. And she still has it today, you know, in Florida. So I also visited John when he was at Harvard a couple of times. He took me to hear Jim Kweskin and the Jug Band with Joff and Maria Muldaur live. He introduced me to the music of Charles Aznavour and Tom Lehrer, and he woke me up every morning with loud Sousa marches. After graduating from Harvard, John got a job at Gould Academy in Bethel, Maine, teaching English. He was there for 2 years before he got the job offer at Fountain Valley School in Colorado Springs. And that, of course, was a turning point in John's life when he went out to Colorado. Now, what I realized while I was preparing for this was that, you know, I may be John's blood-related family, but once he got to the Twin Cities, you and Sharon and the cats, you were his real family. So many of you spent way more time with him than I ever did, taking classes, rehearsing, being in performances, having coffee on Saturdays, and I really want to thank you for the support and love and respect that, that you gave him. When he was in the hospital last month, I read him all your posts from Facebook, and he always had an anecdote or a comment about each one of you, and you could tell he was really touched by what you wrote. And those comments also helped my sisters and cousins get to know what John was really like. My mother especially wanted to come tonight, but at age 91, she couldn't make the trip from Grand Forks, but she sends her regards. Once again, thank you a million times over for being there for John all these years, and for all of you being accomplices to the wacky, wild, and wonderful John R. Munger. We'll miss you, cuz, and we'll never forget you.
This evening will be from a friend of John's from over 40 years, from Colorado to Minneapolis, Mr. Tom Kantok.
This is amazing. This dance community has done a lot for me. I know it did a lot for John. And this is an impressive display of love and support for somebody that did a lot for us. And I wanted to sing a couple songs for John. When I first met John, because, let me see, no, that was a non sequitur. Most of you knew him as a wonderful choreographer and a master teacher and a good friend. And when I first met him, I just thought he was crazier than a shithouse rat. And I thought, there's no way I'm ever going to connect with this guy. And I'm from Stearns County, so I get this first song I'm going to do. Actually, we could add to this. I'll post it on Facebook, but it's an old Ray Rupp tune. Now, Ray Rupp was the guy who wrote music after the Vatican II, so all you Catholics out there, you know how crappy that was. And the music and the guitars and, you know, the sentiment and stuff. So I'm going to get a little sentimental, probably a lot. I hope I can get through this. It's your old friend Tom. Hear me, John. We have things to say. We love you and hope that you're now at peace. Just sit down and shut up. Oh, hear me, John. We're here for you. Oh, hear me, John, and let your mind